The number one way to reduce turnover is to stop promoting people into failure. Often, strong individual contributors are promoted because they're great at the work. So great, we put them right to work to lead others in doing the work. We do more believing they can than training them how. That's why my Emerging Leaders program builds confident, capable leaders across 4 essential competencies: knowing themselves, connecting with others, leading the work, and developing their people. Leadership development does not happen in a classroom. And that is why this program ensures the participant owns their own growth. Their supervisor reinforces the learning every day in a guided process, and the skip level leader ensures alignment and accountability with intention and structure. The result are leaders who are less reactive, more strategic, and better equipped to build capability in others. Are you ready to build your leadership bench? Let's talk. Go to CoachCora.com for more information and to schedule a complimentary discovery call. Let's reduce that turnover.
Welcome to the People Playbook, where real people bring real workplace questions, and Coach Cora helps coach through the challenges leaders face every day. From hiring and communication to accountability, trust, team dynamics, and difficult conversations. This is where leadership gets practical, honest, and human. Real people, real questions, real coaching. Now, here's Coach Cora with the People Playbook.
Welcome to the People Playbook, where we talk about real people challenges that leaders face and real techniques to address them. This is Coach Cora, and once a month I step into the educator mode and take a deeper look at a practical leadership tool, model, or skill that you can use immediately. In our other episodes, we shift into live coaching conversations where guests bring real leadership questions or workplace challenges, and we work through it together, right here, on the air. So bring your questions. Whether you're navigating communication, performance, conflict, change, career growth, or the daily realities of leading people, this is your opportunity to be coached on air and leave with greater clarity and a practical next step, all while helping others. Because if you have the question, so does someone else. Today, we are focusing on one of the most useful tools for understanding ourselves and others, the DISC behavioral model. One of the biggest mistakes we make when promoting someone into leadership is assuming that because they know the work, they automatically know how to lead the people doing the work. Getting the work done is very different from getting it done through others. But leadership introduces an entirely different set of responsibilities. Now you must communicate expectations, build trust, navigate differences, give feedback, coach performance, and respond to conflict. And you have to do all of that with people who think, communicate, decide, and respond very differently than you do. That is why self-awareness is one of the first competencies in my Emerging Leaders Development Program, and why I use the DISC model as a leadership tool. Before we lead others, we must first learn how to lead ourselves. And this starts with self-awareness. DISC self starts that process. DISC is a behavioral model that helps us recognize observable patterns in how people tend to communicate, make decisions, the pace they use to do it, how they approach problems, change, interact with rules, structure, the level of risk they're willing to take, and how they build relationships with others. Like many style tools that we use for improved communication, DISC generally describes 4 behavioral tendencies. There are those that are very direct, decisive, results, and they're comfortable taking action. They love to step into the conflict. You often hear these say, just give me the bottom line. What's the outcome we're driving for here? They use a lot of what language. In the DISC model, we call that dominance. There are others who are very expressive, enthusiastic, relational. They are energized by interacting with others. You may hear them say, well, who's involved? And how can we get people excited? Who can I talk to? Who can help me with that? They use a lot of who language. In the DISC model, we call that influence. There are others that are very patient, very dependable. They're supportive. They're attentive to stability and processes. You may hear them say, how will we get there? What is my first step? How does this affect the team? How can we make this work? How may I help you? They use a lot of how language. In the DISC model, we call this steadiness. There are also those very analytical. They're accuracy driven, they're systemic, and their focus is on quality. You may hear them say, why are we doing this? What information supports that? Is this the correct way to proceed? Why are we changing that without the data? That is not the policy. They use a lot of why language. In the DISC model, we call this conscientiousness. So DISC does not tell us who someone is at their core. It does not measure intelligence, competence, values, character, or potential. It does not suggest that someone can only behave in one way. In fact, what we know is that most people display a combination of styles and can adjust their behavior depending on a situation. But DISC does give us insight into the behavioral tendencies that other people are most likely to experience. It helps us understand what we naturally do, how that behavior may be interpreted, and when we may need to adapt in order to be more effective. In the Coach Cora Emerging Leader Program, self-awareness is the first competency area, and I use this coursework to help leaders understand their own communication preferences. Coupling this with the strength inventory activities help emerging leaders understand what they do well and where their blind spots might be, what will naturally take more effort, and what will come easy. This foundational information provides crucial self-knowledge. This is Coach Cora on the People Playbook here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer. Today is the monthly educational episode, and we're exploring the use of DISC as a leadership tool and an organizational common language. The amount of rework, conflict, and turnover attributed to poor communication is absolutely staggering. The top 3 most requested skills for development across coaching platforms by emerging and middle managers is the ability to have difficult conversations, manage conflict, and provide feedback to others. The 2 models that address these high standards very well are situational leadership, we talked about that last month, and the DISC communication model we're talking about today. Providing these skills in the beginning sets leaders up to be able to maximize their leadership while reducing the impact of poor communication. So let's explore the 3 key benefits of bringing the DISC model into your leadership development. First, this common language builds the self-awareness competency throughout your leadership team. With enhanced awareness comes improved communication. And that is the number 2 benefit, because with improved communication, we have higher levels of trust between leaders and performers. And finally, the third and most important benefit is that with effective communication and trust, conflict and feedback become far more productive, leading to overall improved performance. So let's dig into the first leadership benefit of DISC. It provides a language to help people understand their own behavioral patterns and to hear them in the moment. Emerging leaders begin to recognize how they naturally communicate, how much information they need, how quickly they make decisions, what frustrates them, what they do under pressure, and how their strengths become overused. Because that is when they can see when their directness can become impatience, when their enthusiasm becomes a distraction, when their patience turns into avoidance, and when accuracy becomes paralysis. Every leadership strength has a potential to be overused or used in the wrong situation, and that creates career stallers. I naturally see and speak to the big picture, the vision. It comes so easy to me. But when I overuse this, I leave people wondering about the steps to get there, the how. DISC gives leaders a neutral way to examine their behavior without labeling that as good or bad. Instead of telling somebody, you're too aggressive, DISC teaches us to say, you're going too fast for this situation. Organizations build a different language and moves us away from, you are so pushy, to something more like, although your directness helps create momentum, in this situation, we may need to ask more questions and involve the team a little bit more to maintain our momentum. I saw this recently in an organization in which leaders participate in their new employee onboarding. Part of that is by sharing their styles and preferences while we review the new employee's DISC report together. We run comparisons and communication preferences, and this particular client does this very well. When checking in with a recent new hire on her onboarding progress, she shared some feedback with me on the process. She mentioned that she had brought an idea to the CEO, and he did not respond the way she expected. She had created a very detailed report and put a lot of work into it. And when she met with him, he pushed it aside and asked, "How will this help you meet your goals?" And she started to get a little upset, feeling that her idea had just been dismissed. But then our onboarding meeting popped into her head. So instead of being upset or defending her work, she asked, "Oh, is this what Cora meant when she said, my C might create impatience for your D?" The conversational tone, she shared, changed in that moment. Using not labels, but a common language, they were able to both adjust and adapt their communication to align with each other more closely. After both adjusting, they moved the conversation forward in a very productive way. In our meeting, she was sharing how that had not been done in previous companies, and now she absolutely saw the purpose behind it. What she learned in that moment was that other people's communication response or approach is not about her. She didn't need to take it personal. It was so often about them. And this, for her, really reduced the tension and mitigated a potential conflict. She told me, "I can't wait to get my team built because we are so doing this DISC thing." So self-awareness really helps leaders move away from defending their intentions or their ideas to understanding the impact and being able to make adjustments in their own behavior to support the success of others and to capitalize on their strengths without overusing them. This is Coach Cora on the People Playbook here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer. Today is the monthly educational episode, and we're exploring the use of DISC as a leadership tool and an organizational common language. Let's move on to point number 2. How does a common language improve communication and trust? Well, people often communicate in the way they personally prefer to receive information. A direct leader may give only the headline or bullet points. A relationally focused employee may need conversation and connection, sharing personal experiences. What did you do over the weekend? A steady employee often needs time just to process. What is the change? What is it that you're asking? And they want to take some time to consider what their response might be. An analytical employee, they want some supporting facts and clear expectations, and that would be in writing. And they may even want to know, what is the standard? None of these needs is inherently better than another. They're just different. And it's the blend of these differences that make the strongest teams. Effective communication is not only about what I need to say. It's also about what the other person needs in order to hear, understand, and act on my message. And DISC helps leaders adapt in very practical ways. So I may need to be brief and outcome focused with that one particular person. You know what? I may just need to create some room for conversation and connection with another. Sometimes I just need to slow down and provide reassurance to someone else. And sometimes I just need to bring the supporting information and the details for another team member. And for clarity, this has nothing to do with manipulation. It's not behavioral mojo. It's effective communication. Adapting your communication does not mean becoming fake. It means being flexible enough to communicate in a way that helps another person understand the ask and to succeed. And I have had more than one, personally, introverted and detailed-oriented leader. And I am very fast-paced and big pictures and hard driving. And so learning to self-manage and adapt has had such a big impact on my ability to have mutual success with these leaders. And conversely, when their ability to adapt to my preference, that has been a performance game changer for me. For example, I have a leader, when I would get an email and they would ask me to think about a strategy on a project outcome, Me, I wanted to jump up and run into their office and we could talk about it. Because for me, I am a high DI. I love interruptions. I love people coming in my office. I like to respond off the cuff, and I absolutely think out loud. So going into somebody who's more of an S or a C into their office unscheduled can be more disruptive to them. Remember, they're more intentional and they're planful. And throwing ideas at them and looking for a response off the cuff can be ineffective. They have a preference to think about things before they talk. So knowing this, instead of jumping out of my seat, running into their office, barraging them with the ideas, I can respond with an email. I have some ideas to run by you. Do you have time this afternoon? So when I walk in, I am clear. I'm just tossing some ideas out. I'm just looking for a sounding board. I don't need decisions or facts. This really creates understanding for us both, that they don't need to respond unprepared. And I'm not coming to a decision. I'm just thinking out loud. And this really allows a productive discussion that we are able to have. And without this self-knowledge, we would have simply just created frustration for each other. And that's where trust grows, when we each feel understood, respected, equipped with the information that they need and how they need it. So the key takeaway with this is that we get better responses, deeper understanding, and we ensure that the decisions and the solutions we agree on are the best path forward. This is Coach Cora on the People Playbook here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer. Today is the monthly educational episode, and we are exploring the use of DISC as a leadership tool and organizational common language. So let's get on to the benefit number 3, and that is that a common language makes conflict and feedback more productive. Because without a shared language, behavioral differences quickly become personal judgments. People by nature move to a mindset of judgment. DISC helps teams replace that natural tendency with a learning mindset and curiosity. Instead of asking ourselves, what is wrong with that person? We begin to ask, what might I learn about their communication differences or needs that may be showing up here? When we experience someone whose behavior feels like, oh, she's so controlling, we can shift over to, man, she's really attaching to a process and I'm not sure I know everything about that process. I've heard people say, he never takes anything seriously, with more of our enthusiastic styles. But we can move to, does he sense some tension that he is working to reduce? What am I missing? Because our relational preferences are really good at picking up on those things. We hear in the workplace, she resists every change. We can move away from that to, have we outlined the process in a way that others understand? Or he gets so lost in the details. Teams can move to, do we have the information we need to move forward? And can we agree to do that? This is the ones that I hear a lot. They are so difficult. We can translate that into, well, their style is so different from mine. And what happens is we can move that conversation to being less about the people and more about the problem. I've also heard people say, they just don't care. No, I don't know that it's they don't care, but we can learn through DISC to translate that to, man, they are so focused on the task right now. And so the core point of this is that DISC gives organizations a less threatening way to discuss tension. It allows leaders to give feedback about observable behavior, not attacking someone's personality. For example, when decisions are made very quickly without team input, some members of the group may disengage. How can we create more space for participation while still maintaining momentum? That feedback is far more productive than, you just need to stop being so controlling. The other thing DISC does is it allows leaders to ask, what support does this person need? What do I think is creating the hesitation? Does this person need clarity, confidence, involvement, or additional information? And how should I adjust my coaching approach without lowering the performance expectations? So DISC really helps us coach others. I saw this come to life in a coaching session in an organization that I worked for that preferred to have intervention over discipline. So when we had an employee saying, I'm done, I want out, we had the employee and the leader come into what we called a mediation. And I facilitated that. And when we asked the employee, what is the challenge? His response was, all he ever does is talk. And then I leave that meeting having no idea what I'm supposed to do until I show up the next day and all I hear is what I didn't do. And when we look at the leader, what are you trying to, I tell him, and then he doesn't act. And I remember at that time looking at that leader who had been with the organization quite some time and said, what is your style again? And he's like, oh, I'm a high I. Like, what do you love? I love connection. I love talking. And I was like, and you just hired this new engineer. What do you think his style is? And he was like, oh man, he bonks himself on the head. And he said, he needs details and he probably needs stuff in writing. And I'll never forget when I turned to look at that employee, he's like, oh yeah, he can talk as long as he wants, but if he would just follow it up with an email, like give me a list of what you need from me, I'd be happy. You could talk all you want. And sometimes it's that simple that when DISC gives us that common language, we all know what it means. Like, I need to talk out loud. Yeah, well, I need to know what my steps are. And that was the simple agreement they came up with. So that key takeaway is it's the common language that allows the discussion on differences without turning those differences into flaws. It's not right or wrong or good or bad. It's who I am and what I need and what do you need. It's a very different conversation. So here's some summary. Here's the do's and don'ts. DISC should be used as a starting point for a conversation, as a tool for reflection, a guide for communication, a framework for coaching and team development, and a way to recognize and value behavioral differences. DISC should not be used as an excuse for poor behavior, a permanent label, a hiring decision in and of itself, a reason to stereotype someone, or a way to avoid adapting. When we say, hey, that's just my DISC style, that is not self-awareness, it's avoidance. Because the purpose of understanding your style is not to justify your behavior, it's to take greater responsibility for how your behavior affects others. The real power of DISC is not found in the 4 letters, nor in the report. It is found in the conversation that those letters allow us to have. It gives leaders a language for understanding themselves, appreciating differences, adapting communication, and certainly in coaching people to be more effective. And when an organization shares that language, people spend less time judging one another and more time learning how to work together. And that's especially important for our emerging leaders. The Coach Cora program for emerging leaders teaches these 4 basic areas: know yourself, connect with others, lead to the work, and develop the people. Because before we ask them to manage performance, navigate conflict, delegate work, and develop others, we have to help them understand the person that they bring into every leadership interaction, themselves. And that's how we stop promoting people into failure and begin building confident, capable leaders before they have to figure it out the hard way. So here are your 3 points to remember. DISC builds self-awareness. And through that, it strengthens communication and trust. And when you have that, it makes conflict and feedback far more productive. And that is your play for the day. Remember, we do live coaching on air twice a month. If you want free coaching and have a question we want to explore, go to CoachCora.com and click I Have a Question. Join us next Saturday here at the People Playbook on 9:30 a.m. The Answer and here at Coaching Session Live.
And that's the play for today. Leadership is not about having all the answers. It's about being willing to ask better questions, listen deeper, and lead people with clarity and care. Join Coach Cora next week for more real people, real questions, and real coaching, right here on the People Playbook. If you have a real workplace challenge you would like coached through on air, bring it to the People Playbook website at CoachCora.com/People Playbook and click Ask a Question.
The number one way to reduce turnover is to stop promoting people into failure. Often, strong individual contributors are promoted because they're great at the work. So great, we put them right to work to lead others in doing the work. We do more believing they can than training them how. That's why my Emerging Leaders program builds confident, capable leaders across 4 essential competencies: knowing themselves, connecting with others, leading the work, and developing their people. Leadership development does not happen in a classroom, and that is why this program ensures the participant owns their own growth. Their supervisor reinforces the learning every day in a guided process, and the skip level leader ensures alignment and accountability with intention and structure. The result are leaders who are less reactive, more strategic, and better equipped to build capability in others. Are you ready to build your leadership bench? Let's talk. Go to CoachCora.com for more information and to schedule a complimentary discovery call. Let's reduce that turnover.